Verse 37. Barnabas wanted to take John, called Mark, along with them. So we've seen that there is a power-filled passion. Now I want you to see it sneaking up on us here. There's a persnickety problem. There's a persnickety problem that comes when it's about building the church. And we saw in Church Planting 101, the first problem we saw, persecution. It's brutal, right? We saw in level 1 of our training on the first trip, the primary problem, religious people persecuting them. You will be persecuted, friends. Jesus promised that. To the extent that you will witness for him and be sold out to him, you will come up against the pressures and the persecutions of this world. That's the truth. But now we're at level 2 in our training. And wait till you see when we get to level 3, it just keeps getting tougher and tougher. The problems here now become people problems. And I'm telling you, friends, you're going to have people problems when you get serious about surrendering to the Lord and planting his church or making disciples and being missional. You'll see here in a minute, you're going to have problems with whiners, wimps. You have problems with the ones who are actually going around like wolves. There are problems amongst the people. Now, not all the problems are evil. Sometimes you're going to deal with wimps who need to be strengthened. Sometimes you're going to deal with people who are just wiped out, and you need to lift them up. Know this, that there will be people problems. And here we see what's happening. 2 of the most loving, committed, passionate brothers are about to get into a problem. Don't miss this. One of my reflections of my ignorance, my own naivete, I left the corporate world and went to seminary. And I thought that I had left the war room, the boardroom war rooms, where all the sharks were, and that we were going for a season of training and we were going to go swim with the guppies, right? I had no idea how real the warfare is under the professed umbrella of the church. There is some real people problems that happen when you commit to building the church, and we see it here. Now, I will tell you that this problem typically comes from the wrong perspective. It comes from an unhealthy understanding of power, and by power I mean authority, that there's not the proper submission to the God-ordained leadership. You see it in the home in some cases where God's plan for authority and power in a home structure is lost, and it's a wreck. You see it in the church, and it's a wreck. You see it, the problem come through a wrong perspective. You see the problem surface when there's an unhealthy understanding of power or authority, and ultimately you see it when there's pride. When pride steps in, you get people problems. And lest any of us think, yeah, that's good news for them, they need to hear that. We all need to hear that, because we all have a sin nature, and pride is one of those things that has a way of rearing its head in us. We begin to think too much of ourselves, or we think that we have the way, or we know the way, or if only that person would get in line with me, boy, would their life be better. Conflict is going to be inevitable in the church because we're sinners, and we're not going to live perfectly. But combat, that's optional. There's no need, reason, or justification for combat amongst brothers and sisters. So I tell you here, second thing that we see is the people problems. Recognize this is supernatural warfare. And please note, we're going to see as we go through, the Holy Spirit is needed at every turn. And he's in the foundation of the building of his church and his people.